Waverly Knox had a habit of biting the inside of her cheek when she was nervous, and I had been watching her do it for the past 10 minutes, while she stood in front of the hallway mirror trying to pin a small silver brooch onto the lapel of her blazer. She kept missing. "Here," I said, and she went, still the way she always did when I stepped into her space. Not pulling back, just going quiet. I took the brooch from her fingers. It was a small thing, oval, some kind of heirloom she'd mentioned once and I had never asked about. "Hold the lapel, flat." She pressed it between 2 fingers and watched me in the mirror. I found the clasp, threaded it through the fabric, secured it without tearing anything. Professional, neutral, the kind of thing a friend does. "There," I said. "Thank you." She exhaled slow. Then she looked at herself in the mirror, and I looked at her too. Which was a mistake, because she looked the way she always looked when she had been up since 5, tired in a way that made everything else more visible, like the armor had been left somewhere in the closet by accident. She was wearing a slate gray blazer over a dark dress, her hair pulled back cleaner than usual. A pair of earrings she only wore to things that mattered. She worked in corporate communications at a mid-sized tech firm in Austin, which meant she was the person who got called when a VP said something embarrassing on LinkedIn, or when a quarterly earnings call went sideways, and someone needed to write a statement in under 40 minutes that was both honest and legally survivable. Tonight was the firm's annual donor dinner. Not a gala, not a fundraiser, just a dinner. But the kind of dinner where the people across the table had the power to pull funding, accelerate a merger, or quietly suggest a leadership change. Her boss had a family emergency that morning. Waverly was running it. She had not panicked. She had made a list. I knew because she texted it to me at 6:15 a.m. with the note. "I'm not panicking, I'm organizing." There were 11 items on the list. Her ex-boyfriend Theo had been supposed to come with her. Theo had bowed out 3 days ago, via a text that said he had a prior commitment that he could not reschedule, which she had shown me without comment, just a long look that said everything she was too composed to say out loud. She had been with him for 8 months. He had bowed out of 3 of the last 5 things that mattered to her via text. So when she asked if I could come instead, just to keep me from looking like I'm standing alone at the bar between handshakes, I said yes before she finished the sentence. I had been doing that for about 3 years. I met Waverly at a friend of a friend housewarming in East Austin where I did not know anyone, and she was the only person in the kitchen who looked like she also did not want to be in the living room. She was reading the label on a hot sauce bottle with what looked like genuine critical interest. I said something about the font choice. She said, "The font is terrible, and so is whoever chose to serve brisket without tortillas at a Texas party." I agreed immediately. After that, we stood in that kitchen for an hour, while everyone else had a perfectly fine party without us. We had been something like best friends ever since. The safe word for it, the label that covered everything without asking you to define the edges. She picked up her phone from the entryway table. "Traffic looks fine. We should leave in 7 minutes. I'll get my jacket." "You look fine." I was going to get it regardless. She almost smiled. 7 minutes. The restaurant was the kind of place that did not have prices on the menu, just descriptions, written in small confident fonts, that assumed you already knew what things cost, and were not going to let that change your evening. Waverly walked in ahead of me and became a different person in about 4 steps. Shoulders back, chin up. The kind of calm that looked effortless from the outside, and I knew cost her something. Her assistant Jonah met us just inside the entrance. He was 24 and had the energy of someone who had mainlined 3 espressos and was using the adrenaline responsibly. "Tell me something good," Waverly said. "The Aldrich group is already seated and happy. The centerpieces arrived on time. The sommelier is excellent, and I already told him to start with the Willamette Pinot because Mr. Caldwell mentioned Oregon on the pre-dinner call. He glanced at his tablet. Also, the AV is set up and I tested the slide deck twice. And the bad thing? Jonah's face flickered. Helen Barrow from the board is here. Waverly did not move. She wasn't on the list. She was added this afternoon. Her assistant called at 4:30. Who approved it? Jonah looked at me briefly, like I might help. I gave him nothing. Nobody, technically, he said. She just added herself. Waverly looked across the dining room. Helen Barrow was already visible near the far end of the table. 60-something. Silver-haired. The kind of woman who entered rooms like she was confirming a suspicion. She had opinions about the firm's communication strategy. She had shared them, at length, in the last board review. Okay, Waverly said. Seat her between the Aldrich partner and Dr. Patel. They're both too polite to engage and too well-funded to be ignored. Jonah typed something. Done. What else? Get me water before I sit down. He went. I leaned a little closer to her. Helen Barrow is the one who said your Q3 summary was tonally inconsistent. She said it lacked conviction. Same woman, yes, okay. What do you need from me? Waverly looked at the room. Stay close. Laugh when it's appropriate. Do not let me get stuck talking to the Aldrich Jr. partner alone. He talks about his golf handicap, until someone else shows up. What's his handicap? 12. I know because he told me at the last 3 events. Got it. Golf bad. Rescue required. Exactly. She glanced up at me. For just a second, the polished version slipped. Thank you for coming. I know this is not your idea of a Tuesday. I've had worse Tuesdays. She searched my face like she was checking whether I meant it. I meant it. She knew that. She looked away. The dinner started smooth and stayed that way for about 40 minutes, which in Waverly's world meant something was about to go wrong. I played my role. I talked to the Aldrich group about a construction project near the river that had been in the local news. I let the junior partner explain his golf handicap without visibly suffering. I took a glass of wine from a passing server and held it long enough to look like I was drinking it. Every few minutes I found Waverly across the table, mid-sentence with a board member. Nodding at something, Dr. Patel said, refilling Helen Barrow's water before the server got there, because she had spotted the empty glass from 6 feet away. She was good at this, better than people who had not watched her knew. I was watching her redirect a question about the firm's latest communications hire. Someone had asked something pointed, and she was turning it into a story about investment in talent. When I felt someone settle into the empty chair beside me, I turned. The man sitting down was around my age, wore a suit that fit the way suits fit when someone has spent money on a tailor, and smiled with the practiced warmth of someone who had been told he had a good smile and had been using it ever since. You're with Waverly, he said. I am, Theo. He extended his hand. We've met once, I think, at the thing in South Congress. I shook it. I don't remember that. I'm not surprised. It was crowded. He looked across the table. Waverly was still mid-conversation, her back slightly turned. She looks good. She does. How's she handling tonight? Fine, I said. She's handling it fine. He nodded like he'd expected that. She always does. That's kind of the thing with her. She handles everything fine, and then you don't hear from her for 2 weeks. Because she's recovering from handling everything fine. He picked up a bread roll from the basket like he lived here. I always thought someone should tell her it's okay to not be fine. I looked at him steadily. Someone does. He caught it. His smile stayed. But something behind it adjusted. Right, he said. You're the friend. I'm a friend, the one she calls. One of them. He held my gaze for a beat longer than he needed to. Then he stood, bread roll in hand, and said, Tell her I said hello, as if this were a casual Tuesday and he had not bailed on her with a text 3 days ago. I did not tell her he said hello. An hour in, I found her in the narrow hallway outside the private dining room, standing with her phone in both hands and the expression of someone doing math in their head that was not adding up. "What happened?" I said. "The slide deck for the closing remarks has a typo on the last slide. It says pubic relations." I kept my face neutral for exactly 1 second. Then she looked at me. "Don't," she said. "I didn't say anything. You were about to." "I wasn't." She turned back to her phone. "Jonah is fixing it. He needs 4 minutes. You have 4 minutes. Helen Barrow is currently explaining to Dr. Patel why the firm's social media presence is chaotic in a way that feels intentional. I'll go be chaotic near her." That got a real laugh. Small, fast, but real. She pressed her hand to her mouth like she was trying to put it back. "Don't make me laugh in the hallway," she said. "I have a reputation." "Your reputation is fine. My reputation is professionally maintained and extremely fragile." I took a half step closer. "Waverly." She looked up. "You've got 4 minutes. Take 2 of them." She stared at me. Then, slowly, she leaned back against the wall and let her shoulders drop. "Just a half inch. Enough." "He was here," she said. "I know." "Did he talk to you?" "Briefly." "What did he say?" "Nothing useful." I paused. "He said you always handle everything fine." Her expression didn't change, exactly. But something in it settled into something older and more tired. "He used to say that like it was a compliment." "I know, it wasn't." "I know that too." She looked at the far wall for a moment. Then she said, quietly, "He told me once that loving me felt like being handed a project. Not meanly. Just honestly. Like he thought he was helping by being honest." She exhaled. "He probably was being honest." I didn't say anything. "That's the part that gets you," she said. "When they're honest, he doesn't get to be honest about you to me." I said, "That's not his anymore." She went still. Not dramatically, no big reaction, just a breath that was slightly longer than the one before. And her eyes moved to mine like she was checking something. "Jonah just texted," she said. "Slides fixed." "Good." Neither of us moved for a second. Then she pushed off the wall, straightened her blazer, and said, "Okay. Closing remarks in 20 minutes. She looked at me. "Don't go anywhere. I'll be the one pretending to understand the Q4 projections." She walked back into the dining room, like the hallway conversation had not just rearranged something in the air between us. I followed her, my hands in my pockets, my pulse slightly faster than the situation required. The closing remarks went clean. Waverly stood at the end of the table and spoke for 6 minutes without notes. Warm, specific, thanking people by name and detail in a way that made them feel seen without making it feel rehearsed. Helen Barrow watched with the expression of someone looking for a reason to object and not finding one. After the applause, Jonah appeared at my elbow. "She wrote that in the car on the way over," I figured. "She does that. No notes, full memorization, 30-minute window." He shook his head. "It's kind of terrifying." "Yeah, you've known her a while. 3 years. He nodded like he was filing something. "She talks about you." "Not a lot. But when she does, it's the kind of talking where she doesn't realize she's doing it." Before I could answer, someone across the room called his name and he was gone. I stood near the back of the room while guests filtered toward the exit, watching Waverly work the room with the same efficient warmth she had been using all evening. Helen Barrow said something to her near the door. Waverly listened, nodded once, said something that made Helen Barrow's posture soften slightly, which I was relatively confident had never happened before. Then Theo appeared in the doorway. He had waited. Then that was the thing I had not expected. That he would wait until the end and find her right as the evening was wrapping, when her guard would be at its lowest, because the job was done and she thought she was safe. He touched her arm. She turned. I watched her face move through something. Not warmth, not anger, just recognition of a situation she had not asked for. I crossed the room. "Waverly," I said, coming up beside her. "Jonah needs you for something with the event summary before the catering team closes out." She looked at me. I kept my face neutral but readable. Right, she said. Sorry, Theo. I need to wrap a few things. He nodded. Of course. We should catch up sometime. Sure, she said in the tone that meant the opposite. I put my hand briefly at her back. The same spot I had touched in the photo at the close of the dinner, when Jonah had asked if the two of us could stand with the Aldrich group for a quick shot for the firm's newsletter. She had moved into it without hesitating. I had told myself that was just logistics. We walked toward the side of the room. When we were far enough away, she exhaled. There was no thing with Jonah. I know. Thank you. He waited on purpose, I said. Yes. She looked down at her hands. He does that, times things. She was quiet for a moment. He's not a bad person. That's the hard part. He's just someone who shows up when the pressure is gone, because the pressure is the part he doesn't know how to handle. I thought about what she had said in the hallway. About feeling like a project. You're not a project, I said. She looked at me. What he said, the honest thing, it was wrong. Not because he lied, but because he was describing the wrong thing. You're not a lot of work, Waverly. You're a lot of person. I paused. There's a difference. She stared at me for a moment. That was a little too long to be casual. That was not a friend's thing to say, she said quietly. I could have walked it back. I had the joke ready, the easy pivot, the way to fold it back into something safe. I had been keeping those ready for about 2 years. No, I said, it wasn't. The room felt smaller after that. Not the room, just the space between us. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Jonah needs me, actually this time. She went. I stayed where I was for a minute, and looked at the cleared dinner table, and the low lights, and tried to remember what the plan had been when I'd agreed to come tonight. The restaurant was nearly empty with the event coordinator. By 9:30, Jonah did a final walkthrough with the event coordinator of the table, going through her notes, your debriefed hoax for a Brufti document she would send to her boss, V6 by midnight. I sat across from her and did not offer to help because I knew she did not want help. She wanted company. After a while, she closed her notebook and looked up. Helen Barrow told me the remarks were unexpectedly cohesive. High praise. From Helen, that's basically a standing ovation. You should frame it. She smiled, tired. She also said she appreciated the directness which I'm choosing to take as a win and not examine too closely. She set her pen down. Tonight went well. It did, better than it should have, given how it started. You made it go well. She said. Jonah, you. She looked at me, especially you. I moved 2 chairs and rescued you from a golf conversation. You did more than that. I didn't answer. She turned her water glass in her hands. What you said earlier, about not being a project. Her voice was careful. I've been thinking about it since. Okay, it's not the first time you've said something like that to me. I know. You usually follow it up with a joke. I know that too. She looked at me. Not the hallway look, not the mirror look from earlier. When she caught me, watching her fix the brooch. Something clean, Steadir. Why didn't you tonight? I held her gaze. Because I'm tired of the joke. That sat in the air for a moment. Write in the comments, she said, quiet and almost to herself, and then caught herself and laughed softly, and I realized she was doing what she did when something made her nervous. Deflecting into a joke that only made sense if you knew her well enough to notice she was doing it. Waverly. I know, she said. You don't know what I was going to say. I do, actually. She set the glass down. I've known for a while. A pause. I think I've been knowing for a while and choosing the safer version of it because the safer version didn't have any risk in it. And now? She looked at the table, then back at me. Now I watched you walk into a situation you didn't have to walk into, stand next to me for 4 hours, handle my ex with 2 sentences, and tell me I'm not a project. She exhaled slowly. I think I'm done choosing the safer version. Jonah appeared at the edge of the room, saw us, and immediately turned around and walked back toward the coat check with impressive speed. I reached across the table. She looked at my hand. Then she put hers in it. I've been calling you my best for 3 years, she said. You still can. I don't want to, anymore. I tightened my hand around hers. Okay. I want to call you something that's actually accurate. That seems reasonable. I'm serious. I know. I looked at her. So am I. She squeezed my hand once, and then she leaned across the corner of the table and kissed me, which I had imagined approximately 10,000 times, and which was still somehow better than the version I had been imagining. Because in the version I had imagined, she was not also half-loving, and in real life, the half-law was the part that made it feel like something we had been building toward, rather than stumbling into. When she pulled back, her forehead rested near mine. Jonah is going to say something, she said. Jonah already knows. She laughed again, fuller this time. Of course he does. A beat. My boss is going to know by Thursday. Corporate communications moves fast. It does. She sat back slightly but kept her hand in mine. This is terrifying. Yeah, you're not terrified. I'm very terrified. She looked at me. You're not showing it. I've been practicing. She smiled at that. The real one. The one she most for the kitchen, at parties where she didn't want to be, and for late nights when the work was done and she had stopped managing how she came across. I had seen that smile 200 times and still did not have a good word for what it did to me. We sat there a while longer in the mostly empty restaurant while Jonah pretended to be very busy near the exit. 6 weeks later, her firm had a smaller event. Just internal, 30 people, no donors. And I came again this time because she asked me with a different weight behind it. Not be my stable presence. Just come. Jonah greeted me at the door with a clipboard and a look that said he was choosing professionalism. He lasted about 8 seconds. For what it's worth, he said, I knew at the dinner. Not because of anything obvious. Just the way she laughed in the hallway. She doesn't laugh like that with people who are only friends. I didn't have a good response for that. Also, he added, she sent me a text the morning after that, just said okay with a period. What does that mean? In Waverly, he said, an okay with a period means things have been decided. He went back to his clipboard. Across the room, Waverly was talking to 2 colleagues, animated, her hands moving, the brooch on her lapel catching the light. She looked over once and found me already looking, which meant the game of pretending not to look was officially over. She smiled. Not the polished one, the real one. I had 3 years of being her almost something behind me, and I did not miss a single second of it, because every one of those seconds had been the road to exactly this. Her standing in a room full of people who needed her. Knowing I was there because I wanted to be. Not because she had asked me to manage anything. She did not need managing. She needed someone who knew the difference,